Hello, welcome to the Skate Podcast, your place for ribs. Just kidding. Skate Podcast, movie podcast. Thank you for listening. Today's episode is Rampage, starring a big dumb gorilla and a CGI monkey. Alright, so before we get to that, Avengers came out this weekend. I just saw it. Pretty sweet. I'm not going to give any spoilers away. The only thing I'll say, and it's not a spoiler, is that if you're waiting for credit scenes, there aren't any, so don't bother about it. It all takes place before the credits. There's no middle scene, there's no after scene. If you have to pee because it's a 3-hour movie, go. Just leave the theater. It's not a big deal. It's not a joke. The movie is pretty cool. I can't say too much, I guess, but...
Don't say anything at all.
But I enjoyed it. It was good.
Yeah.
So is there anything else going on for you in the world of movies?
We can talk about Joker.
The Joker trailer looked interesting. Looks like a different take on the character, kind of.
I think that the Batman character and his villains, I think they're better done in a real world setting. You know, we've seen a lot of the, Batman in this very far-fetched kind of world where ridiculous stuff is happening. And it's not there's anything wrong with that.
Bam, pow, zap.
I'm not even talking that. I'm just talking like a guy that shoots ice and a woman that has plants grow and an alligator man and, all this dumb stuff.
So you think it's about time we see the Joker?
I just think it's him and his, the villain. Like Nolan did it best with the real world. Like nothing's, The Dark Knight Rises got a little more extreme, but for the most part, he kept it in a real world grounded setting. And I like that. And I think that this Joker being set in a more of a realistic world. I think it looks better.
To me, it looks like an 80 or not an 80, a 70s crime movie in a way.
It's going to have Robert De Niro in it. That's pretty cool.
Well, wow.
Yeah.
It kind of looks interesting.
Yeah, I think it looks really good. Actually, I know there's already a big debate on who's going to be the better Joker.
I'm not even going to take part in that. That's just dumb.
You're dumb.
Yeah, we'll have one group saying Mark Hamill, and have one group saying Heath Ledger.
Oh yeah, there's always going to be people supporting
Ledger.
What Caesar? What was his name?
Romero?
Yeah.
And he had a mustache, but they just painted over it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, the Star Wars trailer came out, too.
Oh, yeah.
I was a little shocked by it, but at the same time, not really.
Shocked by what?
Oh, that they just, there was so much, backlash over the last one. Whether you liked it or not, it made a bunch of noise. A lot of negative noise. And, now they're kind of backtracking on everything. Oh, look, we're going to double down on all the old stuff. So my problems with The Force Awakens is going to be my problems with this one, where it's just all the old stuff over again.
What old stuff?
Oh, Lando flying the Millennium Falcon, and then you got Luke's voiceover saying nobody's ever really gone, so that we can have all the classic characters back together again. Somehow they have Leia in there. They must have filmed some extra scenes.
Using deleted scenes from the previous 2 movies? Is that how it's working?
Sure, I guess. And then at the end you have the laughter that sounds a lot like
the Emperor.
The Emperor. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, they killed Snoke was kind of interesting. I was kind of curious to who he was going to be and what he was all about, and they killed him so...
I was so bored with the first one, but the only things that had me interested were, whose Rey's family was, which I guess they could still do something with that, but I don't care anymore. And then Snoke's background, and then I don't care about that anymore. And I just don't care about Star Wars in general anymore. There's a lot of hype around something that's not really that good anymore.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I'm sure a lot of people out there disagree with me, but...
I just heard some talk that there's going to be a Nickelodeon Star Trek animated show. I'm serious.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't care.
It's probably going to be CG.
Sure. I'm sure it's going to be real goofy with dumb sense of humor.
Yeah, I think they did say it's going to be a comedy.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me, though. Why Nickelodeon? I don't know if it's what...
This is the world we live in now, where they just rehash everything.
Well, have you even seen the new Ninja Turtle Nickelodeon cartoon? I think it's Nickelodeon still. It looks ridiculous.
There's one of them that I heard was good. I don't know if it's that one or not.
No, it's not this one.
Yeah, no, I'm just
Anything else new?
No, I'm trying to remember if there were any good trailers before the movie, but I think we've seen most of them.
Was it the type of thing where a lot of people were like cheering and yelling when like, oh, this happened, hooray? Like a lot of like...
There were fan reactions, but I'm not going to go into it.
See, and that's another reason why I wouldn't want to see this movie at this point, because I don't want to be distracted by everyone else.
It wasn't like that at all.
Well, crazy. Well, maybe for you.
There's been a lot of theater experiences that have been horrible lately, but like this one, everybody was paying attention the whole time, and people laughed together, and people were quiet together, people clapped together. I think clapping at a movie is kind of stupid, but people did it anyway, so...
Oh, I'm going to clap hard, baby.
Sure, go for it. It's like, what are you clapping for? You're like...
I know. I remember the first time I was at a theater when somebody clapped at the end. I was kind of thought it was silly, but...
Good job, projectionist. You didn't mess it up.
I don't even know if there's a projectionist anymore. Don't they, like...
No, it's probably all digital.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Just press a button.
Yeah.
I rescued George. He was 2 years old. He's not just a friend. He's family. Don't move a muscle.
Are you crazy? Don't move!
Okay. Very funny. You and I laughing at your joke. New guy, he no laugh. He cry. You can get up now.
And check your diaper. Come on. Let's go.
Got your message about George. You okay?
I don't know.
George? It's okay.
Is Amir, is he considerably bigger?
No, he's definitely bigger.
All right, so Rampage came out last year, right?
Yeah, 2018.
Give us the stats.
Brandon, what happens when you take A Good Day to Die Hard, Mighty Joe Young, Godzilla, Transformers, Jurassic World, The Iron Giant, and every Roland Emmerich movie ever, and put them together? Rampage.
I was going to say a pizza that just won't quit.
Rampage. This movie, the big thing I saw is that it seems to borrow a lot from a lot. It
reminds me of a video game I played once.
Yeah, so yes, it started off as a arcade game from 1986. It was eventually ported over to like the NES and stuff.
Did you play it?
Oh, this was one of my favorite arcade games whenever I go to Showbiz.
Did you ever play it for like NES or anything though?
I never had it for the Nintendo. I just remember every time like we went to Showbiz or Chuck E. Cheese, Caesarland.
Yeah.
That was the one I always looked forward to the most.
I had an NES, and that's one of the games I never had, but everybody else did, so I played it all the time.
Yeah. So this is directed by Brad Payton. It has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 52 by the critics and 73% by the audience. Stars Dwayne Johnson, Naomi Harris, Malin Akerman, Jake Lacey, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. It was made on a budget of $140 million and made about $428 million.
So as far as video game movies go, it's kind of successful.
I guess.
There's been a long history of video game movies, and I don't think any one has been really good yet.
No, I can't even think of...
Now, before you saw this, had you heard anything about it? Like any feedback?
No, I don't think I cared when it first came out.
I was interested in it just because my love for the game, and it looked like it was going to be really stupid, but fun.
The biggest thing I remember thinking was that they made the gorilla white, probably to distinguish him from Kong, even though in the video game he was brown.
Yeah.
And in turn, though, what's funny to me about that is it now reminds me of Son of Kong and was an albino.
Right. Mighty Joe Young was a large gorilla, but not like Kong.
Yeah, and that's another thing, too, is the gorilla was, I mean, he got bigger, but he was still much smaller than the wolf and the alligator.
Right. Well, the way I remember it in the video games is that they were people that mutated into monsters.
Like they made out like they drank some...
they had some kind of concoction or
which
whatever.
I think might have actually helped a little bit, at least maybe for the wolf and what now they made an alligator, where he was more like kind of like a Godzilla type, character in the video game. Because I thought if you could have had they're these giant monsters, but they have like somewhat of the mind of a person to have some kind of, logical thinking of what they're doing and why. I thought that kind of could have made it cool. Mm-hmm. Maybe even if the gorilla was just a gorilla that became large, but the other two.
I was thinking that too, because in this it's some kind of experimental. What?
I think it's like the Jurassic World thing about the whole blending of dinosaurs is that they were talking about, if we took the sonar feature of a bat and we put it in this thing.
Oh, that was so ridiculous. We'll get to that later.
We did this and that, and sharks can keep growing, and what if you put the acceleration of a shark, and all this dumb. So basically, just blending animals.
Yeah, it turned out to be
probably weaponizing them. I don't think they ever quite spell it out, but I'm sure they wanted to make some ultimate.
They said that kind of like it was genetic engineering to create weapons, basically.
Sure,
and for this movie, it's not as bad because I'm not going to be taking Rampage seriously. Whereas Jurassic Park is kind of a serious movie grounded in science. But when you get to Jurassic World, they're like, oh yeah, that old B movie. It might as well be like Super Cobra on the Sci-Fi Channel or whatever,
Yeah, I mean the thing that I'll give them though is I don't think they're trying to take themselves too seriously. I mean, I think they know that it's a dumb action movie, sci-fi action, I guess you might say.
I was surprised by how serious the movie actually was. There were parts that were a little bit goofy and kind of winky, but I expected more of that, and I think the movie actually would have been better to just be cheesier instead of try to be too realistic.
Well, let's start at the beginning. So did you recognize our astronaut?
No, who was that?
That was Wendy Peppercorn from The Sandlot.
That was one of the little girls. Oh, that was the lifeguard?
Yeah. So that scene right there, that reminded me of Alien. Specifically the end of the original Alien. Yep. And I almost was more interested in what had happened there than, what happened afterward. But yeah, so we start off with the lone survivor on this space station where they were doing these experiments. A lab rat has now turned into a monster.
And I believe that in like the GameCube or PlayStation 2 versions,
they added a
whatever.
ton. Yeah, I was actually pretty pumped. I think it was like for the PS2 and Xbox. They
had a rat.
They made a whole bunch more, and there
were there
like,
more?
Oh, there was like a Venus flytrap monster. There was like tons of more creatures. And
so the classic three though were the wolf, the
lizard, and Kong essentially. Yeah. And they used the names, but I think Lizzie was the lizard creature. And Ralph was I noticed they used the name
I did
Ralph,
notice that, yeah.
And of course George. Those were all the original names because they were people, like we said.
I never thought about it before, but Ralph is kind of like a dog barking. Ralph. So that's probably why his name is Ralph. Anyway.
And now, but the thing that never made sense is they had I guess he was an alligator, right, in this version? Yeah. The alligator and the wolf, not only were they larger, but they had like spikes and, he had tusk and he had like a flying squirrel type wing thing and just all this.
It made sense with the story though, and
the alligator had all these he looked like a dinosaur with his spikes and he had that huge like tail. Mm-hmm. They never really went into why though. Well, they said George just got big and that was it.
They said it was the genetic engineering combining all the different parts of everything.
But how come George didn't get any of that?
I don't know.
I mean, if he picked up the same canister,
because he was the hero.
Okay, so yeah,
the monsters have to be ugly because that's how you know they're the bad guys.
Yeah. So you say this movie took it a little more serious than you were expecting, where the biggest problem for me was the humor, I think. It didn't land, like none of it. At the very beginning, they had the guy trying to impress the girl with all the dangerous situations he's been in, and, and then like, it's supposed to be funny the way, he's translating essentially what the gorilla's saying, George is saying, so that we, the audience, can hear, and then, so I watched this twice. And the first time I watched it was, a week or two ago. Mm-hmm. I just finished it. The second time around, I got a small laugh out of the scene where they're trying to escape from the military. He's got those two guys, and he's got the guy in a headlock, and he goes, "It's a big arm. Don't fight it." Like, I got just the smallest laugh out of that second time. But other than that, nothing was really funny to me. And although Dwayne Johnson seems like he's probably a really nice guy, I feel like he plays the same character in every movie he does. And I don't understand why so many people are just like, oh man, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, like this is great. Like, I mean, he's exactly the same character in every movie he does. And I don't know if it's that he can't do anything else or they just hire him to be the same person every time or a little both. But I think that just gets kind of old. What's your favorite Rock movie? I don't even know because I don't. How many of them have you seen? I can't. I saw the Jumanji sequel. I did see that, and he was the same guy there. Well, okay. I mean, they gave him the fact that he's supposed to be a regular kid, but I mean, still, I mean.
I think he's got a range. I don't think it's the biggest range.
Yeah.
As far as, like, his type of movie, because he's basically the new Arnold right now.
Sure.
So, I mean, Arnold didn't have a huge range, but
Yeah.
people kept going to see his movies. I think that's kind of the deal here. And I think he's fine for what he does.
I guess. I just, like,
All right, so
flipping him off. It just wasn't funny. I don't know.
The Rock is working at, like, an animal sanctuary or a zoo, something like that.
Sure.
And he's mostly in charge of the primates, right?
Yeah, he's like a specialist on
So, at first it looks like they're walking around in a jungle, but it's just the
habitat.
Yeah, the habitat that the
Yeah.
gorillas live in. And he's doing sign language to all these gorillas and stuff. And I think I had heard just recently that they were talking about that specifically, like being able to do sign language with primates and stuff, and how it's actually all.
Well, they did
like,
that in Congo.
Well, it's from what I've heard, it's actually all bullcrap, which makes sense to me. Like, basically, it's like training a dog. You teach the gorilla to make these signs, and then you give them a banana. Mm-hmm. So they're just going to do it. I don't know if there's really too much into it. I don't know if they're actually communicating.
I did notice later, like after the city's in rubble, I think he was just talking to George.
Yeah.
George was signing back, but I was like, I'm not seeing your hands move there, buddy.
There were plenty of dumb parts
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. So the FBI agent, they ended up having to be a good guy, which did kind of surprise me. I was thinking he was going to be the opponent, essentially, for The Rock.
I thought that about, what's his name, Joe Magnolia?
Yes. He was another one. I couldn't believe they killed him off, because I thought for sure either A, he was going to also be a big villain for The Rock until they killed him off. Then I thought the FBI agent was, but I thought either he was going to be the villain or he was going to survive it. In the end, he was going to like kind of really want some revenge on the wolf because it killed his team. Like I thought maybe he might be, they might join forces kind of, and he was like had this personal vendetta.
What if, in order to get those monsters under control, the three of them who didn't like each other ended up having to take something that turned them into monsters, and they all ended up fighting each other? Would that have been more interesting?
Maybe.
One of the funny things I thought was Joe. How do you say his last name?
Yes, just like that.
Yeah. So Joe.
Yeah.
He was in True Blood. He played a werewolf character, which I thought was funny because he's going after the wolf.
Yeah.
Oh, how appropriate.
Yes.
And then he got eaten. He was the last member of his team.
I really did think, they were going to do something more with him. Mm-hmm. And they did this cowboy thing way too much. Like, I got really sick of that.
Oh, yeah, he laid it on thick. What's his name? Robert John Downey Jr.?
Yes. Well, at first it was like, I didn't even realize he was just a smart aleck. And then, like, it was all about, thanks for saving this old cowboy. And, and all this dumb stuff. I don't know, it just got... One time I could have handled, but it just was over and over and over again. Everything out of his mouth was about how he's an old cowboy and whatever.
Yeah, and he'd draw out all of his sentences and make sure to have that. There was so much weird about the story. Like, to me, the story in this seems like it was written by a group of kids, and they're like, okay, now just adapt it for the screen.
Well, the villains were, and I know I've spoke before about like, I'm tired of having these big connections. Everything's got to be like, my father and his father work together.
And the two human villains in this were the brother and sister that
they
owned
ended
this
like
company.
at the very end. They threw in this line that lets you know they were related. They never said anything to the
at the beginning. I'm pretty sure
did they were. Okay, I don't remember until he says, my sister, whatever. But they were like
the exposition twins.
Yes.
Like anytime you saw them, they're like.
She was way over the top.
This person's still alive. Oh, you mean the person who we killed her brother and now she hates us, so we had to fire her?
Okay, yeah. I was like, what did they do to her brother? Like, I didn't... Like, she wanted revenge. She was stealing company stuff, so they had her arrested, and she was thrown in prison, which, it wasn't like they...
Well, let's talk about, like, who the characters are. So they're talking about a scientist that used to work for them. They're, like, this big conglomerate that makes the mutagen.
Yeah. It was such a flimsy plot because, they turned on this radio to get the monsters to come to the city so that the military would then kill them and then they could, I guess, run out with a syringe and get a blood sample. You would think they would have files upon files upon files and backups of all the data, all the tech, all the blood samples. Like, I wouldn't think they would need anything more. It was just so flimsy. Just to get them into Chicago. Although I guess it was kind of relief it wasn't New York.
You're happy it was Chicago?
I'm just happy it wasn't at least New York. It just, you get so sick of everything being in New York. Just about.
Sure.
It's a small praise. I'll give them credit where due.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the two The siblings in this were horrible. I believe the woman was in Watchmen. She was,
she was
one of the characters.
Yeah.
As well as our cowboy dude. He was the comedian from Watchmen.
Oh, yeah, he was. I didn't even pick that together, yeah.
And the guy, the brother, he was from The Office.
Right.
He was...
Yeah,
Nate?
He was, like, in the last season, he was...
one of the interns.
Yeah, well, I don't think they were interns. I think they were just new. They were, Aaron. It ended up being Aaron's love interest. When they decided
there were two of them, the fat one and the tall one. He was the tall one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so The Rock, these 3 canisters end up landing on Earth. One lands in the gorilla sanctuary. One lands out in, like, Wyoming.
Sure. One in, like, probably to Florida,
in the middle
I
of...
guess.
Yeah, the other one was the Everglades.
Yeah.
So, a wolf gets a hold of one, gorilla gets a hold of one, crocodile gets a hold of one. They start to go on a rampage. And George, the gorilla, the albino gorilla, is supposed to be so rare, and The Rock is the one who rescued him after he murdered all of the poachers that were chopping up George's mother or whatever. And so he's got a special connection with this gorilla, and it's supposed to be super rare, too. He's the rarest gorilla around.
Well, I actually saw something about albino gorillas. I guess they are pretty rare.
Oh, I'm sure. Like, albino everything is rare.
Yeah.
And so he's got a super tight connection with the gorilla. They do the sign language. They're bros.
And they did this stupid thing where they were trying to be all, I'm close to the animals and I don't trust people and people let you down.
Yeah.
And it was so, like, just weak and, like, it was trying to build character for him and it just didn't work.
When they notice something's wrong with George and they find that empty canister, George is starting to get bigger and a little more aggressive. He kills a bear. Somehow he ends up in the bear enclosure and kills a bear.
Yeah.
So they put him in a pen, and he's getting bigger and bigger, and the scientist who sees a news story in the morning on her way to work just goes to the zoo instead to check out George because...
Well, I think she saw about the meteorites, I think, right? And then I think they also showed... No, it was about the fact that the space station blew up, and the brother... Pete from The Office had about this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Brave men and women, da-da-da. So she knew something was up, with what they were doing.
So she goes to rescue the day. She lies a little bit, says she works for that company. She used to work for that company.
Right.
She got fired for trying to sabotage
She was
them.
stealing documents or tech or something.
Because she wanted to stop them. So instead of trying to, like, report them to any type of agency or...
I mean, I guess she felt she needed proof. If she just went to them, they would
Well,
probably...
didn't she say she was trying to steal it or destroy it, though?
She was trying to steal it.
Yeah. And what's funny is she had been fired 4 or 5 years, 2 years at the most.
Something like
it had
that.
been multiple years since she had worked there, but she knew all the security stuff still. She was able to get around from building to building. She knew where they hid things. She knew that their thermostat in the building could hack into the system.
Yes.
Okay, so she's a hacker. She's a bioengineer.
Yeah, it was...
also, she had a degree in psychology or something. Yeah. She's trying to tell The Rock all this stuff.
Well, it's like The Rock. They threw in that he used to be in the...
he was military.
Right, so like he knows how
poachers.
to fly a helicopter. He knows how to shoot guns and all this tactical...
He was the baddest man in Greenpeace.
Yeah, it was, all this stuff. They did that to everybody,
Yeah.
Everybody had some little quick backstory to get them...
Joe Werewolf was former military. Seemed like every scene, like they didn't want to do the exposition, but they know they had to have it in there to make the story make sense, I guess, even though it didn't. So, like, every scene had people given, like, weird bouts of exposition about themselves and other people. I don't know. It was odd. So, Negan comes up and grabs George, kidnaps the scientist and The Rock for some reason. Why did he take them? He said he worked for the government. He didn't say what agency, right?
So that's when George broke out of his pen and like the police were coming and he manages to get them to lower their weapons, right? You're talking about that scene. I mean, I guess I don't know. I thought he was just like, you're not taking him anywhere without me. And
right.
So
and this happened so she shows up at the zoo to tell The Rock what's going on.
Yeah.
In that scene, George literally breaks out of his cell, goes through a wall, and then when he gets outside, the cops are already pulling up. How in the world did that happen? And then there's helicopters and all sorts of stuff going on.
Plot. Move it forward. I don't know. It's the type of thing where there's probably no good reason to really dissect it this much. It's just, it is what it is. They just have to get stuff.
They did at least explain how they were able to keep George asleep. Like, we already calculated all of his growth rate and his metabolism and all that. So at least they covered themselves on that. But then they said, oh, they have bat DNA, so they're going to go crazy trying to turn the sound off. What does that have to do with anything? Like, 'cause they have super ears, I guess? It didn't make any sense what they said had to do anything with bats.
It was just an excuse to get them all in the same place.
And why would they be working together? If at first it's
the wolf and the...
Yeah, they turn on that sound because they want to draw the animals in. But then they meet up, so they were in a similar area, I guess. And then instead of fighting each other or whatever, they're fighting everything else around them, like doing teamwork on all like the tanks and military helicopters.
I mean, again, it's very flimsy. Yeah. I thought it was funny they were able to go into Weidens. I think that was their last name. The villains, the brother and sister, the Weidens or something. They were able to go in their building. There was no security.
The Waltons.
They were able to go into the building. There was no security, nothing to stop them. And she just starts hacking their thermostat. And they, I don't know.
The military had bombed the animals, right? They knew they were heading in this direction, right? Yeah. Why were there still so many people there? I know it's going to take a long time to evacuate a city, but here's another thing too.
Well, yeah, he told them to evacuate. The Rock was saying, like, you need to evacuate Chicago, and they didn't want to listen, so I don't know.
Oh,
I guess that's another thing, too.
The military was ridiculous. And in all these movies, there's always, like, a strong military presence, and I think that's the most boring part. I'd rather see, like, the person, like, going about their daily life, and then all of a sudden, there's a giant creature running down the street, kind of like they did in Cloverfield, the first Cloverfield. Okay. So, the military, I don't know what he was. Did they ever say he was a general or anything?
Yeah, I believe he was a general.
But did they say it? He had to have been some kind of general. Yeah. And where were they? Like, he was an Air Force general from Colorado, and he was giving orders to everybody to do all this stuff in Chicago. Right. And he even gives out the order to drop an atom bomb.
Yeah, I was going to say, usually in these movies you would have, like, Mr. President, like some kind of authorization, like, yes, this is the last.
It may not have been an atom bomb, but I think they said Moab, the mother of all bombs.
It was supposed to be the biggest bomb to ever drop on, US soil.
You have to be, like, super high up. It's got to be, like, the president is the very tip-top of the military. Right. So it's going to be coming from him or somebody directly below him, and they'd have to get the president's approval. But, like, this guy's just like, let's just destroy Chicago.
Yes, exactly.
It was so weird. Yeah. And the way that The Rock and Scientist Lady were able to just hijack a helicopter and leave.
Well, they didn't. He did give them the keys.
Well, no, they as soon as they walked out of the door, they ran into an alley. Then there were only two guards who easily got beaten up by The Rock, even though they had guns. Yeah. And then they ran into a helicopter with still nobody noticing. Like, this helicopter was just sitting out. Yeah.
And then I think he said it was a medic helicopter, but yes.
And nobody had any clue that they were stealing this helicopter. There was nobody saying unauthorized flight or anything. They didn't try and chase him down. It was so weird.
And they had bigger fish to fry.
I was actually expecting The Rock to get into the helicopter, flip the visor down, and have the keys fall out.
Well, he made a joke about that.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
When I used to know his name, the Fed.
Well, I know he threw them
cowboy.
The keys.
He goes, you think they just keep the keys under the visor or above the visor?
They might as well.
Yeah. So basically, this movie is just to see big giant animals fight and destroy the city.
And there was enough of that. That part was all cool. It was fun watching them kind of destroy stuff in the city. And even when, like, they got to the main building, which was one of the bigger buildings that they showed in the movie, the way that they were climbing on it and destroying stuff, like, I had fun. I had flashbacks.
There was
to the video
a weird
game.
part where the alligator, he climbed up, then he, like, bore into it.
That, to me, that was the coolest part.
And then he came out on the other side to start climbing again.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
I thought that was super cool. It reminded me of the video games, and it was neat, I thought. So, as they're flying, Rock and Scientist Lady, to Chicago, because somehow they're gonna... Why don't they just tell people, these guys have the antidote?
They did. In their defense, they did, but no one would really listen to them.
The FBI raided that building. Everybody was gone except for the people that owned it, the brother and sister.
Yeah. And
they didn't get the antidote then? They didn't tell the military why they were there? Look, they do have the antidote. She used to work there. She knows. Instead, they're like, well, we got to go do it ourselves.
You think instead of, they would also be taken down to some, interrogation, like, what are these things? Some kind of, they just let them stay there while they searched around the computers and, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they apparently left, and
There's
they were
no
still
security in that building at all.
And then the FBI left, and they were still just standing there in their building, just someone broke in.
So as they're finally flying over Chicago, and they know about the wolf, they know about George, they're teaming up on the city right now.
Lizzie shows up.
There's a submerged object moving in, and then I think that would have been awesome had they not shown it really like in the previews, and they had not shown it like at the beginning. You see the alligator eat it, so you know it's there, and then later on they show like one scene of it swimming around or something. Sure. Had they not shown any of that, and then just all of a sudden it showed up at the end, that would have been great.
Well, it's like we said. I mean, when you see a giant gorilla attacking the city, you think Kong. When you see a giant lizard, you think Godzilla. To me, and I know they were trying not to be, I think, so on the nose with it by having them be just an alligator, but like to me, they should just like, I wanted to see them at least start to like operate upright, because like
bipedal, yeah.
Yes. I don't know. I wanted to see like a scene where they're like sliding down and punching the building as they go down and jumping from the one rooftop to another while the military tries to, bomb the building. Like I wanted to see stuff like that.
Well, obviously the gorilla is already humanoid, but
I mean, they still had him operate like a gorilla does. They didn't do the.
You got the 2 arms, 2 legs, standing like that with the
He still ran around on his fist.
But gorillas are already similar enough to us to where they wouldn't need to do anything.
Sure, but I mean, they didn't just go full fledged.
Had they done that with the wolf and crocodile, it would have been cool. Although I really did like the look of the crocodile. I thought he looked awesome.
Okay,
and I did like that compared to the other two, he was like twice their size, which to me made sense kind of too because reptiles have a more of a growth rate. Like they never stop growing.
Okay.
Even though they said that with other two, but like, an alligator is going to be 15 feet long. A big alligator is going to be about that size. Pretty big. I don't know any 15-foot gorillas. So I thought that was cool that he was the biggest one. And then they kind of offed the wolf right away, which I don't know. I guess I was okay with that.
Yeah. I wish there would have been a little more with that, but, what's funny, there was a scene where The Rock, he's just running around, of course, and he's running basically under the alligator while the alligator's charging toward George. The Rock's like running under it, and it reminded me of the 2005 Kong when Jack Black and all his, guys are running from the stampede of Brontosaurus, and like essentially they're like Looney Tunes. They're somehow running through these things' legs, and somehow they're not getting trampled, they're not tripping. It just looked so goofy, and it just reminded me of that. That's one of the weakest parts of that movie, and they essentially did that here.
It was so weird. The Rock had been shot at this point in the stomach.
Shot in the stomach. Which I was kind of surprised they had her do that. I was like, hey.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that, too.
But it didn't, like, he never,
it didn't faze him at all.
Yeah, I guess he was running on adrenaline. Like, the blood on his shirt never seemed to get bigger. He's never, like,
I was watching it with Christy. She pointed out there was no exit wound too, so the bullet's just sitting in him somewhere. It's not good.
It's The Rock, baby.
Yeah, I guess. So the Rock's been shot, and he's teaming up with the gorilla, who's half the size of the alligator, to take on the alligator. So like he's hopping in downed helicopters and stuff, shooting at the alligator. Which
there was this goofy scene where they did it. I just actually rewatched, just for funsies, the '98 American Godzilla. And there's this part where essentially like they're in a cab and Godzilla's like, trying to get them, but like I think they're in like the Lincoln Tunnel or something, and he could just barely get to them, and like when he sticks his arm in there, they're able, like he's just beyond their reach. Mm-hmm. And they did that again with this where he's crawling somewhere and the alligator's like coming at him. I mean, he's just like a foot away from getting him, and you would just think something that size could just break through anything to just get him, but they did that, and it seemed ridiculous. And then they had the gorilla jump, and they did this like weird
300
flash thing, where it like, and then closer and closer, and then just right through the eye, and it was just so silly.
It's funny because we were just talking about how we watched the alligator climb a building and then like literally crawl through it.
Yeah,
but then he can't get to the rock. And honestly, all right. Think about an animal. If you hurt an animal or you even threaten it a little bit, is it going to it might charge you, but is it going to chase you and eat you, or is it going to try and get away from you?
Well, again, in their defense, they did say like it caused agitation or because remember even George was
okay.
kind of, not
Sure,
really...
but like the size of the rock compared to it, like it's like a
I was thinking about that. That would be like us just going crazy over like
an ant.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, not even a mouse, and think it like, an ant could go through a crack. I would never be able to find him.
Would you be sticking your snout through the crack
yes.
trying to get him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing too. If you lit this beacon up on top of your building to attract gigantic monsters who are destroying everything, are you going to be sticking around, or are you going to get the heck out of there?
They got to get that syringe, baby. They got to get down there and get some blood.
Where did all their employees go if that's what they wanted?
I don't think they could hire the extras to play the employees.
And then the way that Cowboy Negan tricked the brother into going out the one door so he could get squashed.
Okay, I was saying... Okay, yeah, I had something written down. I thought that was so risky on his part because essentially he said, "I was coming. You saved me the trip. You ran down 86 floors or whatever. You saved me the trip of having to run up there and arrest you. Tell you what, you give me the laptop and the rat, and you can go." Because they kind of showed where he was seeing rubble fall. That was an awful risk of letting this guy go that you were intending to arrest in hopes that rubble.
They made it
fall
seem
at
like
the right time.
he knew that he was going to get killed if he went out that door,
Right.
but like. So he walked out the door and got squished. Like,
Yeah,
like everything was fine until he walked out the door. It was so weird.
Yeah, essentially the third act was really... I actually was more interested toward the beginning, even though there were some problems, and once you got to the big city thing, you just see that so often now, I guess, especially like these Transformers movies. It's so overdone, the mayhem that they can do, and it's just... It kind of got a little boring for me.
For me, this is what I was hoping out of it. After I'd watched it, I felt like they took it too seriously. I was thinking go with more of like a Mars Attacks type vibe to it, where it's just like, yeah, it's a giant monster movie, and then it kind of pays homage to them, but it's just like in a silly way. So like, if they actually turn the people into the monsters, and then like they had some silly news reports, I don't want to hear the orchestra kick up and all these gigantic action scenes with The Rock doing all this unbelievable crap like it's serious. I would like to see like a silly news report on TV, or have the monsters do some funny things.
That reminds me of RoboCop.
All the meanwhile, they're trying to figure out like, how do we turn these monsters back into people? That would be more interesting to me. Like a Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Okay.
Where it's
I agree. I definitely, even if it would have been like where they start off as animals and you find out that like the guy, the leader of the pack, Joe, maybe
Shoeless Joe Jackson,
if he got bit but not enough to kill him, and maybe he turned into this like giant werewolf.
Or if you don't want to make it a person, make it somebody's puppy.
Yeah,
that would have been great. Instead of like a wolf. Like if it's going to make it super aggressive anyway, it'd be more funny for it to be like an aggressive bloodhound that looks all goofy. Make it look like Droopy the dog or something. Something silly and outrageous, because the movie is going to be silly and outrageous anyway.
So the rat, I was thinking for sure the fact that he says, hand me that little guy too. Like that. Maybe
you thought that was going to lead to something.
I thought maybe that was going to be a post-credit scene. You were going to find out that they show the rat. He's, in some laboratory in the government, and all of a sudden he does something. He gets bigger or whatever. And he hands him to the military guy for a satellite phone. And the soldier probably just sat it down and went, like, what am I holding on to a rat for? I got bigger things to do. They never acknowledged the rat again, but it was obviously important enough for the brother to take, for the FBI guy to ask for him. He said, I bet there's a laptop in that bag.
If that was the payoff for us seeing those pet rats the whole time, why?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, and here's another thing too. If they had the rat, which clearly was something special about this rat, why do they need the wolf, the gorilla, and the alligator? They already had it, again, in him. And they had the laptop, which probably had all the stuff. There was no need for any of this stuff. But whatevs.
None of the movie really made sense. I don't know. I'm ready to grade it.
I was actually just about to say I'm at the end. You want to go first?
For me, like, it had its moments.
Yeah.
It wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen. I'd rather watch that over Transformers, I guess.
Agreed. I'll give you that.
So, like, if I had to... Me and Christy both agreed. We both said 5 out of 10 right away. So I'd have to give it maybe like a C-.
Okay. If I could sum this up, I would say fun yet forgettable. It borrows a lot of elements, and I guess you see that a lot anyway. They're not like the only ones that do this, but it is a lot of that.
Here's the thing with today's movies and big blockbusters is that there's like 40 of them every year now.
Sure.
So now none of them are really special. There was a time where like Jaws was a huge thing, Terminator was a huge thing, Independence Day was a huge thing.
Yeah, there was a summer blockbuster.
There were maybe like 2 or 3 at the most, and now there's like all throughout the year. It's just nothing but blockbusters anymore.
Yeah, you have all these companies competing on when to release their movie.
Yeah, like even Avengers, like it was sweet to watch all of these movies, and you know the last one it's 3 hours long and it's good, and they kind of wrap everything up in a way.
Yeah. But they literally just had Captain Marvel come out, 2 months ago or something?
It's good, but it just doesn't feel special like it used to. Like, thinking back on it, I'm not even really sure which ones were good and not anymore. I know the ones I didn't like, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe, like, Captain America 2 is my favorite one. I think that one's, like, maybe the best movie. That and the first Avengers. But, like, anyway, besides that, like, there's so many big blockbusters that come out now. Once you have so much of something, it's not unique anymore.
Sure. So anyway, yeah.
I will say that I will say that I thought the special effects were decent for the most part, like the CG, like the creatures looked really cool, and when they were destroying stuff, that was fun.
I think George looked the best. I
thought the crocodile looked the coolest.
Because you could tell he was. I believe he was motion capture. I think he was the only one that was, obviously. But anyway,
for me, the best parts of the movie were the Rock and the Croc.
Biggest problem for me was just flimsy plot, goofy villains, and humor that didn't work. My favorite part was George on a rampage in the plane. Like, I actually thought that was the most fun.
That reminded me of the Hulk in Avengers.
That reminded me a little bit of the newest Mummy with Tom Cruise, but regardless, I still liked it in this movie. Obviously, this isn't the type of movie that you really should dissect and look at so closely, even though we did. That's just kind of what we do.
There are plenty of little things that were annoying, but like it's hard to be too hard on the movie, you know?
It was fun, but I don't feel like I need to see this anytime soon again. I would give it a C.
Oh, okay, you ranked it a little higher than I did.
What'd you say again?
I said C-.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give it a C.
What's funny is when I was thinking 5 out of 10, I don't know what we gave Arrival when, I think I gave it a D maybe when we did that.
I can't remember either.
Go back in the archives and check out Arrival on YouTube. Anyway, we both hated Arrival, and that one is like a critically acclaimed movie, and I gave it on my YouTube channel, I gave it a 4, and I would give this one a 5. So Rampage was dumb and stupid, and I liked it more than Arrival.
But sometimes there's movies, like, I was just about to say what I thought. It's a Star Trek movie, and a lot of people feel a very certain way about it, and I feel the total opposite way about it. I was almost about to say which one, but I'll save it. But sometimes that's just the way it goes. I mean, there's some really dumb movies like Star Crash, ridiculous crap movie, but I like it.
There's a difference between good bad and bad bad.
Yeah. So I guess that's it, right?
Yeah, I think for me, new movies coming out, and since we're talking about Rampage, I'm looking forward to Godzilla coming out pretty soon. So I'll be looking forward to talking about that with you at some point.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, what was I wanting to see? There was something I was kind of interested in seeing, and now I can't remember what it was. Obviously, Toy Story 4, John Wick. I don't know if I'll actually make it. I will probably make it to the theater for Toy Story, especially now that I've been able to watch them with Benji. So that will be kind of cool for us to go see a movie that we can both like really watch. Plus, those movies are fantastic. Alrighty then. Well, thanks for listening to the podcast. Give us some feedback, or else. Yeah, it'd be really cool if somebody gave us a rating on iTunes, or just told some friend of theirs about us. That'd be really
We also have buttons for sale. Inquire.
Oh yeah, sure.
All right. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to travel through time. I bid you adieu.
Don't stop now! You can't go! All the plants are gonna die!
Where are you going? I've got to return some videotapes.
Bye, Felicia.
What it was. Obviously, Toy Story 4, John Wick. I don't know if I'll actually make it. I will probably make it to the theater for Toy Story, especially now that I've been able to watch them with Benji. So that will be kind of cool for us to go see a movie that we can both like really watch. Plus, those movies are fantastic. Alrighty then. Well, thanks for listening to the podcast. Give us some feedback, or else. Yeah, it'd be really cool if somebody gave us a rating on iTunes, or just told some friend of theirs about us. That'd be really
We also have buttons for sale. Inquire.
Oh yeah, sure.
All right. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to travel through time. I bid you adieu.
Don't stop now! You can't go! all the plants are gonna die.
Where are you going? I've got to return some videotapes.
Bye, Felicia.